Hello everyone, welcome to I Am Aware, News, Faith, Opinion, Debate, and Truth, and sometimes sports, yay! Sports page has been kind of terribly neglected, so thought I would go ahead and put something in for that. This is a topic that's come up in the past. It's come up a little bit recently, and I don't know, I may even wait to post this till it really comes up again a little more at some point, but I thought it would be, good to get to, something to talk about. It's a controversial issue. It's one that people, get twisted up and they just get a bunch of feelings involved and have problems with it. So, to start with this, I kind of want to frame the conversation a little bit. This is not a video about political side. It's not about government and laws and policies and issues. It's not about ethics or in some sense, it's not about what you should be doing in the privacy of your own home or your own life. We're cutting that part out of it. Okay, we're going to try and take this issue aside and look at it specifically from a singular point of view, which is, of course, a sports story. Because sports, there's something different. They're a little unique, and again, I've said it before, I'll probably say it again, heck, I could make a whole video about that alone, that sports are very important, I think, in a society. They can be, such a great force, a unifying force, it does a lot, Sports can do a lot of things in society, and so it's kind of separate, it's its own entity almost. So I want to look at this issue today strictly as a sports issue, first and foremost. And that's what the story is. I'm not going to take a stance, really, one way or the other, on the underlying subject outside of this. It's a focused kind of look at everything. And secondly, I guess as far as, who the audience is, I'm not going to take this from, like, a high school athletics or even a college athletics or even really a national athletics point of view so much. Just look at it, world class, elite class, Olympic class kind of, top of the grade view from this. Not because I don't think the principles fit throughout. It's just, I don't know how much everyone else really, sticks to the purity of the sport and everything so much as you would get from, World Cup sports or Olympic sports and stuff like that. So, it's kind of a bigger issue. It can affect all levels, but I'm going to, go at it from that level, Olympic, world-class, elite level, because I aim high, So, that's what I'll do, and if I can post it, I'll tweet it at the Olympics and everything, why not, just to try and get it to maybe that kind of target audience, and, so, whatever. Olympics, world sports, world-class athletes, whatever, and of course the fans that watch it, because that is part of what drives that as well, so, if you are interested in that and everything, then I hope you'll watch. And again, if you start getting into that, angry, you start getting the rush of feelings and everything, just trying to look at it as one aspect. So hopefully we can get through this and everybody can keep a cool mind and maybe look at the greater issue. You can disagree with me, but, I'm not coming at this as like a, hateful, evil kind of thing. It's just, again, the purity of sports and everything. And really, it gets down to what a lot of people will argue for this issue, is equality and fairness. But, again, what is equality and fairness in sports? Is it everyone feels good? No. Is it, the equality, the fairness of the competition itself? That's where that comes in. That's what the fairness and equality of sports is. It's not, everyone gets a trophy. It's, what is it? Did everyone have a fair and equal chance to, compete and possibly win. So that's the main thing. And, it's hard for people, again, to separate all these things, but that's it. That's the main goal. What is fair, right? What is a fair and equal portion in sports? What makes it work? And again, kind of going back to how important sports is, period, it's one of the things right now, people, again, with politics, how they are, with, any kind of issue almost you can think of today, it's corruption. People just don't think that it's fair. Like, everyone almost, it seems today, feels like they're getting cheated at virtually everything. So for sports to be able to try and kind of rise above that and maintain some kind of just purity of the sport and absolute level playing field kind of fairness, I think it's really important, all right? So it's important, not just to maybe society, to give people a little bit of a break to think, hey, I can sit down and watch this for a few hours, and I may love the outcome or hate the outcome, but, for the most part, unless it's the Patriots, but for the most part, you can sit down and watch it and say, okay, maybe there was a bad call, maybe this happened or that, but for the most part, it was a fair match. There's always going to be problems. There's always going to be people arguing one way or another. I know I've heard people say, questioning about, okay, you can't use steroids, but there's all these people suddenly have asthma that are competing, and of course they use steroid inhalers and all this. So I know there's always going to be that. There's always going to be that little bit of controversy, that little bit of idea that somebody's, getting cheated. You can't satisfy everyone all of the time, ever. So, it's just, there's always going to be people that have a problem. There's always going to be a little bit of that. But on the main scale and large scale, you want it to be, a pretty fair and equal thing. And, again, sports being one of the few places where you can kind of still mostly get that, I think it's important, again, not just to the people, but to the sports themselves. Because if you start to lose that, well, you may not exist much longer, right? Because, why are people going to sit down and watch something else that is just screwed and rigged or whatever kind of words and buzzwords and crap you want to use to describe it? So, I think that kind of is why it could be important and all this. So, now, I don't think I've even mentioned what the subject is. You could probably read the headline of the video or whatever and get it. But, again, we are talking about the transgender athletes in sport. Again, huge topic, huge controversy, right? But here's the thing. Again, we're looking at it as sports. And that's a different level. Again, what's fair? What's equal? Well, is it fair and equal that everyone should get to participate? Or everyone that can, make that elite level should be able to participate? Okay, sure. But at the same time, should someone who is born, let's just take in this case, a man, be able to compete with women? Now, again, what is fairness to their feelings and all that? I know that's the argument people want to take, but that doesn't really matter. Again, sports is different, right? The purity of sports, again, the fairness of sports is that people have an equal chance. Now, you want to talk about genders and all of this, none of that matters here. It really doesn't matter at all. How people feel, what they think, none of that matters when it comes to sport. Sport is what you physically bring to the field, what your heart and soul and your mind, everything you can pump into it, that's what sport is. It's purely, a physical and, emotional just drive. And that's pretty much it. You can sit there and feel like you should win. You can feel like you should be an all-time great, a multiple-year Olympian and all this. It doesn't mean it happens. Your feeling doesn't matter. You have to put forth, you have to have the skill, have the ability, put forth the effort, and, do it. And that's it. So, and I think I intended to start looking up the actual records and stuff, but I don't have them all. You can look them up yourselves, I'm sure. But, the thing with separate men and women's sports, again, it's not gender. People want to start going, oh, gender. It has nothing to do with gender. Gender has nothing to do with your physical body, right? Gender is, a mix of sexuality and your general feelings of this and what you want to be, how you want to define yourself and all, whatever, okay? But that has nothing to do with sports, okay? It's not a dating game. It's not, building family. It's strictly a competition. It's strictly, again, physical body and, everything you can put into it. So at that level, it's not a gender conversation. It really isn't. So, you can be transgendered. That's, fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can be transgendered and, if you can actually make that level of sport, you should be able to play in, World Cups or Olympics or whatever. The problem is, this is not gender. This is a sex issue. And that's where a lot of people get confused. I mean, it doesn't matter. It can be left or right or whatever. You hear people all the time, oh, there's only two genders. Well, there's two sexes. The specific scientific term, there are two sexes. There are men and women, male, female. That's it. Okay? You want to get into genders and all the whatever, everything surrounding that. Again, trying to sidestep that issue for the most part. That's a whole different level. That has kind of turned into this giant monster of so many different things that can maybe compete with themselves or whatever. And I don't know. It gets to a point, where it's almost like I don't recall the name of it, of course, but, just the dragon that just consumed so much and he turned around and he was eating his own tail and consuming himself. It gets into that kind of level at some point because, part of the whole gender thing is, well, you shouldn't have to conform to certain ideals, just because, you're a boy doesn't mean you should have to play with, dump trucks and wear red, you can wear pink and play with dolls if you want, that, because that's right. And then at the other time, people say, well, I grew up and I was a boy, but I liked pink and dolls, and that told me that I was supposed to be a girl. So, again, when you get into the gender aspects of it and all of that, it completely dilutes this conversation. Again, sports is a separate conversation. So you can take all that, I don't know, somehow in that little just jumbled mess you may have gotten offended. Sorry, I mean no disrespect, no anything. I'm just trying to say that is a separate issue, and we're putting that aside. Sport is about sex. You can be, if you are a man who has transitioned, to the gender of a woman, fine. But physically, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you don't want to be that. It doesn't matter how much you feel that you shouldn't be a man. You were born with the body of a man. Now again, what you do outside of that, what you do in your everyday life, whatever, fine. But if you're going to compete at that kind of level, if you're going to compete in a strictly physical, type of event or anything like that, shouldn't it be based on your physical attributes? I mean, and I don't know, if you want to take the men's and women's off the team and just say, male type or female type or what, I don't know. Again, what would be the appropriate terms at this point in the culture? I have no idea. But, again, you go to sex, men and women would seem correct, but I don't know. Some people may disagree. I don't know. But as far as sex, which is what it is, that's all, you are born a man or you are born a woman. What you choose, what kind of lifestyle you have, what kind of sexuality you have after that is all something else and different. But you are born as one or the other. Okay? And it doesn't matter how much you feel like a woman or feel like a man, you were born with what you're born with. And again, when it comes to sports, that's what matters. It's not about how you feel, it's not about what you think you should be, it's about what you are. Now, again, well, what's the difference, right? It's fair. People all have their fair chance. Well, it's not. Again, because while it's something else that society tends to try and push out, the simple truth is there are physical differences in men and women, in sex A and sex B here, okay? And again, we can say, well, the childish things, point, haha, naughty parts, whatever. Not talking about that. There are other physical differences, Again, there tends to be a height difference. There can tend to be a weight difference. There can tend to be a muscle density difference, a bone strength difference. I mean, there's all kinds of things, and again, love it or hate it, like it or not, that's how it is. There are many differences in the physiology of men and women, okay? It's just the way we're made, and you can call it, nature, you can call it God, whatever you want to call it. That's how human beings are. You are physically, again, outside of your bits and all that. You are generally this or that. You are, big, male, or, and again, it's not all exact. Of course, there are smaller men, there are larger women and all, but again, you go down, and I mean, there are legitimate, deep differences. Again, like I said, bone density, muscle density, bone mass, all that kind of stuff, that can tend to favor towards men. I know women can usually, they can be a little more steady and, have better abilities there, which in that case you could say it's unfair to men because, equally trained men and women the same, generally you would think having a usually naturally steadier hand, women would be able to perform better at that, So, I mean, everybody has their own things, but, it doesn't, women have their pluses and minuses, men have their plus and minus. That's just how it is. That's, and I'm not saying flat across the board any man can beat any woman at any physical thing. That's, obviously ridiculous. But, again, we're not talking about people on the street. We're talking about people who are training at an elite world-class level here, or, again, if you want to take it down the line, fine, a professional sports level, or, whatever. However far you want to take it. You were talking about people who are putting in a, similar amount of effort. And, so that's going to be, if you raise that up to equal, if you raise the training and all the preparation to an equal level, then, it kind of gets back to the natural skills and just actual, again, physiology of the individual. And that, again, in many cases can favor the man. And, I mean, I don't know, perhaps in a synchronized swimming, again, shooting, synchronized swimming may favor women. Of course, I may just think that because I tend to be a sinker more. If I get in the water, mostly it's I'm swimming or I'm dying. So I don't know why. I just do. But so it seems like maybe that could also be one. I know not everyone has that problem. But anyway, I may be wrong there, but I think, there does tend to be something with women that, they can be more buoyant and they can, so there's those, and you may think, well, there's a lot of other things, that are more girl sports or something that, maybe should favor the women, but it wouldn't necessarily in a lot of these now. I mean, you look at something, like, let's say figure skating, because, I think that's one. Well, maybe I remember things a little more than some people, but I watched the Olympics, we've seen the figure skating recently and all, and there was a big deal there about, I don't remember the names, I don't remember the absolute, titles, the name of the jump and everything, but, there was a woman that did, what was it, maybe a triple axel, I think, triple something, anyway, it was, I think, three, jump up and do 3 3/4 turn, I think it is. And it was a big deal. She was the first American to do it, and I think only the 5th woman to do it at, Olympic competition and all. And, it's amazing. It's a great feat for her. It's, it's amazing for any of the women who have done that, so far. But then on the other side, you have the male figure skaters, and, they're out there doing quadruple you know, turns, you know. So even though people would think maybe ice skating is more of a girl sport, the way it is now, and if you want to get into a conversation of the purity of, you know, and the origins of the sport and the actual figure skating, you know, I don't know. Maybe with better balance and agility and everything, actual figure skating would favor women more. But the way ice skating, Olympic level, world class level ice skating is today, it wouldn't necessarily favor women at all. Even though that is the perception of it usually, you know, I think it would heavily favor men if, you know, if there were transgender people, males, transitioned to females competing with other women, again, that would not be a fair thing. And again, it goes beyond even that, you know, it's the strength and even the durability. Again, like I talked about, you know, bone mass and all this, you know, men tend to have greater bone mass and all that, and, you know, when you look at them doing these jumps and they come down, land on one leg, and, you know, they say there's, 500 pounds plus of pressure on it, you know, that can be damaging. That's something you're not going to be able to do for a ton of time necessarily, and you know, the male transitioned into a woman would have a better durability in the sport even. So, you know, it wouldn't just necessarily affect the podium that one year that they maybe made it, but, you know, they could maybe continue and, you know, affect it for years to come. And so, you know, again, even the males would have to face those Russians, and I don't know. I don't know if robots could beat the Russians at this point, but, you know, whatever. I think they said there's somebody that might now. I don't know. But anyway, not that I hugely follow that sport, but still. But, you know, I mean, that, and I mean, all these things. I mean, like gymnastics is also kind of the same way, which, okay, I keep wanting to go back to purity and origin of the sport and all that. You know, they've taken some of the artistic scoring out of it, and now it's all so much about the big jumps and all this. And yeah, I understand people watching at home. It's the same thing that has happened to football here. You know, a lot of the kind of purity and hardcore grinding out kind of the sport is kind of falling away because people want to just see touchdowns all the time. You know, throw the ball 50 yards. That's what we don't want to see somebody run for 3 yards, you know, 10 times to drive down the field. No, we just want to see a big touchdown pass, you know. So, you know, the fans themselves are tending to drive away from purity in the sport and all, but to some extent. But, again, for these sports that people may generally tend to think of as more women's sports, it's kind of taking them out of that because it is becoming more about the big, the strong, the powerful, you know, this and that. And so, again, if you put a male into those same routines, there's a good chance that he would win. You know, he would be able to beat the women at a sport, again, generally considered to be more, maybe, of a women's sports, you know. So, that's what we're talking about, you know. It's, and you know, that's besides all the other, you know, events, you know, the track, the field, the swimming, and all this. Again, I think with something, there may be an ability, women may have a little bit, maybe distance swimming, I think, or something, but still, again, most of the time, just unfortunately, when it comes to sports, and especially as they get more about physicality and the strength, and, you know, just these outstanding, over-the-top abilities and everything, it tends to favor more and more a male physique. It just does. You know, so to push things all the way over to, you know, I mean, driving, you know, women to the very limits and then say, well, we're also going to let people who have a male physique compete against you, it is not a fair competition. It's just not. And, you know, I mean, maybe the best example right now, let's take Bruce Jenner, right? Bruce Jenner is now Caitlyn Jenner. But if you go back, if he decided to do that back in his height, I mean, you know, men couldn't touch him in the track. You know, you want to compare his numbers and his, you know, times and everything to the women of that time? I mean, it's, you know, that's just how it is. It's, men and women are physically different. It's just a fact of the world, a fact of nature, whatever you want to call it. It's just a truth. It is a true and absolute thing. And again, you may not like what you were born as. You may want to transition. You may feel like your life would be better in one way or another or whatever. Fine. But when it comes to sport, we should not be separating them by genders. They should be separated by sex. Because that is what most applies to sports. You know, if you want to talk about gender over sex and many, many other fields, it's not really that big of a deal. But sports is about your physical ability. And to say that, a 6'2", 210-pound man is an equal match to a 5'7", 110-pound woman, it's just, a lot of cases, that's not going to be a fair match. I mean, I'm kind of reminded of the whole thing. There was a UFC fighter, I think, that was a transgendered woman, and, I mean, just absolutely destroyed these other, females who were born as women. I mean, just, cracking their skulls, doing horrible, absolutely horrible damage to them in these, cage fights. And I mean, I'm sorry, again, if that person wants to be whatever they are outside of the ring, that's fine. But when you make your job to be a physical male, a man, and beat the living crap out of, physical women, I don't care what realm you want to put that in, it's not right. Even if the woman you're going against has transitioned into a male, okay, it's still not physically right. I mean, that's just, it's an outmatch. It's not right. There's no way you can put that to where that's right. I mean, in that especially. I mean, it's one thing to say it's unfair. It takes away the opportunities of women to compete and be able to make teams and all this versus potential transitioning males. That, that's definitely a part of this that, should be part of the conversation too, because, I mean, that's what's brought this story up, or stories about this up so many times, has been, a lot of high school champions in women's sports are actually boys. There have been girls that have worked their whole lives towards, track scholarships and everything who have lost it because a boy transitioned to a girl or felt like a girl, whatever, and so they got on the girls' team and outran them and cost them virtually their whole lives, their whole career, everything they had worked for up to that point. So that is a huge portion of this, but, I mean, if you want to really talk about physical sports, and again, any kind of fighting sport, I mean, I think that goes into even another level of not right. There's nothing right, there's nothing good about, someone who is basically a male, a man, fighting and just beating the living crap out of a woman. I'm sorry, that's never good. I'm never going to support that in any way, okay? I mean, unless the woman's some, freaking super spy and trying to kill you, you don't have much right to, I mean, just, there's no reason for that, and I don't know how they sold tickets to that, but whatever, anyway, moving on, though. So, I mean, it's not a fair matchup, and it's based upon sex. It's not based upon, all this other stuff. It's not based upon, psychological sciences, or it's strictly about physical science. It is the physical science of two sexes and two different sexes that are built differently, that function differently, and are really just not physically equal. And again, in many ways, again, not saying all men could beat all women, not saying there aren't sports or events that women would take over men. But, again, it's no more fair that way around, so it's just, you can't, there's a reason there are men's and women's sports at these top levels and everything, because they're different. And if you just say, I mean, take about any sports hero, that women have over, the years, and just say, okay, if we take away the fact that there's two teams, if we take away the men's and women's team, and there's just one team, does that woman ever get on the team? I mean, if you're building an Olympic basketball team, and you can pick from anyone in the WNBA, but you can also pick from anyone in the NBA, how many women make that team when, the other team is all, like 7 feet tall? How many, women are even getting close to being picked for that, even if they are very skilled, because they're just completely physically outmatched for that type of event, So it's just, I don't know. I'm trying to say it in ways that isn't going to, trigger different people on different sides about this, because, I get it. I get the whole thing, your lifestyles and all this, but that's not what this is about. That has no, merit in this conversation. Sports is a different thing. Sports is not about anything other than your body, what you put into it, your training, and your effort to go out there and do it. And you just can't have an equal and fair athletic competition when, you start saying, well, this is a women's team, but, any guys who feel like they maybe should be women can also be on the team. And, and again, cost any number of women spots on that team, maybe ruin their entire lives, because they have trained and worked so hard for this event, and now they can't do it. They can't be on the women's team because a physical male is on their team instead. And again, the people picking the teams obviously want to pick whoever can give them the best opportunity to win. And, again, being more physical, males being able to be, I guess, more successful at most sports and everything, it's just, it's going to cost women more, Again, not that certain women wouldn't take certain sports and everything, not that no women would get in, I'm not making the argument that, there's going to be this giant rush of men who are just going to say, I feel like a woman, just so they can, play on that team. Of course, you look at the world today and people right now, and you gotta think, it might happen. People don't seem to be getting better, so there may be a slight rush of that, but that that's really not even what I think the issue is. I mean, it's just the physical difference, and again, how many women, I know one here locally was talking about, she was the last one to barely make her swim team and all this, and now she's an Olympic gold medalist and everything or something, but, she may have never made that team if these standards were in, and, just, it would have only taken one person to completely edit the course of her life, and so, it's just not fair, and it does for, for this time where, I think, there's a huge new equality for women movement coming. I just don't see how this doesn't get more play on that, because, while I guess feminists and the transgender movement do have arguments and all, it's just, well, I guess this is part of the reason why. It's things like this. And so, for all that, there are these reasons, there are all these reasons I've laid out. There's probably even more as to why why you shouldn't mix gender and sex when it comes to sports. If you're a transgendered man, if you've transitioned into a woman, and if you can be at the Olympic elite kind of level, then you should be there. But you should compete against other people who you are physically similar to. And I'm not talking about outside. I'm not talking about your, anything like that. Again, all those parts aside, I know, you may have a surgery, whatever, but physically, down deep in your actual body, what are you? How do you match up? How do you physically, match up compared to this and that? And that's what it has to be based upon. It's the only way to keep, a fairness and an equal opportunity for each, sex, for men in certain sports, for women in certain sports, and to give them all that opportunity to be able to do what they love, to do what they're great at, and do it well, and compete well, and, actually win, as compared to a lot of these transitioned athletes, So, it's just a point. It's something people just continuously kind of bring up, and there's a fight, there's an argument, there's, name calling and everything that goes with this, but again, I just hope people out there can look at this issue, separate all the feelings, all the emotions, any idea of all the gender stuff and everything, and just put that aside and just look at the purity of sport and the equality and fairness that have to be involved in this, not in feelings, not in anything outside of that, but in physical attribute and ability. That has to be preserved, because otherwise, again, I mean, how long do sports continue if it gets so tangled up in all the political correctness and all of these other things? I mean, it's, again, you look at things here now, I mean, the politics and crap is already kind of getting into sports and messing with them a lot, whether it's Donald Trump's feud with the NFL or whatever, there's a lot of issues like that. And so, again, that's why I kind of pushed this out, not just to, all sports, but specifically to those elite, world-class, World Cup, Olympic types of sports. This is important. This may be something that can hinge your survival in the future, because if you just get caught up in all the mess and get away from the purity, get away from the true fairness and equality of sport and the purity of sport and everything that, is good about it, the greatness of the competition and everything that actually draws people to sport, you may very well not exist. You may, I mean, there's already troubles with it. I know, you hear stories about it. This could break you. It really could. And I'm a sports fan. I like sports. I don't want to see sports destroyed, I mean, heck, as far as that goes, I mean, you can say I'm delusional, but heck, I'm still not entirely, at least in my own mind, I still put a chance I could do something, sports-wise. I'm not that old. Just gotta get back in shape and all, for your consideration, people, but whatever, So I still kind of have that in me, though, kind of a dream to maybe compete at these levels, and so I don't want to see them destroyed. I don't think, I don't know that much of anyone in the world would want to see these things fall apart, but it's kind of happening. In certain places, with certain things, in certain sports, because of certain issues. It's a rough time in the world right now, and the last thing people need is another political, crap fest. They need something pure and simple and decent and right and, fair, equal, and good. And that's what sports can be. It's what it's been for so long. It's why it's been able to heal racial divisions and all kinds of other things over the years. But right now, the way things are, it's, things are getting so bad in politics and everything else in the world that it's actually starting to affect, sport. It's going the other way. Sports used to affect, politics and cultural issues in a positive way, and now it's kind of turned around where the culture and the politics is actually affecting sports in a negative way. So, I put this out there, again, not just because this has been kind of a hot button issue on and off, and not just because I have this, fairly pretty plain opinion on it, but just, I would really like to see, sports try to exist and try to continue and, not be destroyed by all the rest of the political mess out here right now. So, that's all I can say. I mean, if you still have a problem with it, if you think it's still coming from some position of hate, I don't know what to tell you. Again, I'm not saying transgender people shouldn't be in the Olympics. I'm just saying they should compete as what they physically are. Because it's a physical competition. And, I mean, okay, they don't feel like they are this or that. Well, that's fine. They can be whatever they want to be outside of this competition, but, you know, I mean, it's a pure, straightforward thing, and I suppose if you can't understand this, if you still can't agree with this point, then you're pretty well set on your political bent and you're not going to move it for anything. So, you know, again, you can't please everyone all the time, right? Or you can't please everyone any of the time, to be probably more accurate. But, you know, I just have to lay it out there. And again, hopefully, I really hope, you know, that elite level at least, you know, again, especially when you look at world competitions, because what happens in individual nations could go crazy, who knows what. But, you know, if that top level, those world-class events, you know, stay to some kind of purity of sport and stay to, you know, the reality of what things are and the fairness that people are looking for when they tune into some kind of sports event, hopefully, you know, that top level will listen to that and, well, do what I would think seems like the simple right thing, and what I think may, again, hinge their future existence. You know, not even because of the politics of it, just because of, you know, people don't tend to like, you know, someone winning all the time anyway. I mean, again, I don't know if the Patriots, you know, New England Patriots are cheating all that much. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but everyone's always going to think they are. You know, you win that much, that often, in any sport. I don't know, auto racing, you know, whatever. If you're that dominant all the time, people are already going to think there's something wrong. They're already going to start tuning out and be like, yeah, this sucks. I don't want to watch this person win again or this team win again. And if it gets to that for a reason that they can look at and say, okay, that, you know, 6'4" woman, this woman is outrunning all the other ones every time, or, you know, whatever. You know, this small, you know, man is out shooting, you know, this, whatever it is. Yeah, again, whichever sport it is, whichever transition sex would have the upper hand or whatever. It's just, if people look at that, you know, they can feel whatever they want, but if it gets to that point, you know, it just, it could collapse whatever's left of sport. And, you know, so, again, it's an important thing in society. It's, you know, and I would like to see it continue, and hopefully it will not be destroyed by all these crazy issues and all these personal things and all this cultural upheaval and you know, this whole kind of transitioning that the world and the culture and everything are going through right now. So just gotta put it out there, how to do it, you know, and hopefully people are willing to listen and can stick to that. I mean, I think for the most part, you know, Olympic sport has mostly held that down and not given away too much into all that, but, you know, hold strong on that. That's all I can say, because I'm sure, you know, there's going to be pressure. I know I saw a couple of years ago, I think it was a South African transgendered woman who, you know, was just outrunning everyone, but they were saying, well, she's not going to be able to compete at the next level, and, oh, that's politics getting into it. Well, no, it's science getting into it more, you know. It's just, again, if that transgendered woman can run at that elite level and can compete with other, you know, physically male contestants, then great, you know. Hey, you know, let's see what she can do. If you want to cheer for her, fine. But, you know, again, just physically it should be an equal level and an equal competition. And, I mean, if people want to try and say, well, you know, if you want to have a few mixed sports or whatever to equal that out or something too, whatever. You know, if there's certain sports you can find that, you know, you can have an equal number. I don't know. All I'm saying is it should be addressed in some way other than just totally starting to mix everything up. Because, you know, it's not going to help the sport. It's not going to help the cause of those athletes, or, because it's just going to drive more craziness. And again, people are tired of unfair things, and that's what it becomes. So, I think that covers the issue fairly well. Again, hope people will consider listening, whether you're just a fan or somebody who may be at some high level of some kind of committee or sports league or whatever. So, just for your consideration, hope people will listen. And I guess that will wrap it up for today. So, thank you for watching and listening and everything. Again, if you want to argue the point and everything and disagree, that's fine, Debate is always part of the I am aware, subheading, so, throw it out there. Share your opinions if you disagree, or if you agree, or have any, other ideas about how to handle this next, thing kind of coming up, and, whatever. Other than that, like it, share it, tweet it to the Olympics and to the World Cups and all that. Why not, Just get it out there if you liked it, or, argue with it if you didn't. Whatever. Like the page, subscribe to the channel, all that other social media stuff. You all know what to do. And that was it for me today. So thank you all again for watching. God bless, and I am out.